I'm going to open up the Town of Chincoteague's regular meeting for May. If we can all please stand for the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Your kind of Heavenly Father, Lord, we certainly pray for our country, Lord. Lord, we pray for its men and women in the military. Lord, we just pray for hedge of protection, Lord. And Lord, in all the places that they are, Lord, and just let them feel your spirit, Lord, and let them feel your presence. Lord, we certainly pray for our state. Lord, be with its leaders, Lord. Lord, be with our county, Lord, and Billy Joe, Lord, and all the people there that make decisions. Lord, give them strength, and may they seek your will, Lord. And Lord, we certainly pray for our town, Lord. It's all of its employees, Lord. We pray for a hedge of protection over them, Lord. Especially, Lord, our police and the EMT, Lord. They're just out so many times, Lord. And that fire whistle's always going off, Lord. And Lord, we talk about a fire whistle, Lord. We certainly pray for the family of Kenny Taylor, Lord. Lord, so many times that fire whistle went off, Lord, and he'd be the first one in that truck, Lord. And we just thank you for all the volunteers, Lord. But Lord, we certainly thank you for his spirit of volunteerism, Lord, in our town, Lord, and all the times he's been out there for us. Lord, just be with each and every one of us here, Lord, the town officials, Lord. Give us strength, Lord, and give us courage, Lord, and we pray that we will seek your will. We pray this town will always seek your will, Lord. Just go with us and guide us and direct us in everything that we do. For we ask these things in Jesus' precious name, and for his sake, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everybody out in YouTube land. All right. I'll entertain a motion to adopt tonight's agenda.
So moved. Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All righty. First thing on the agenda is a presentation by Team Brianna.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Donna Leonard, and Cindy Faith and I made this presentation to the Recreation and Community Enhancement Committee meeting last week, and Jean Wayne suggested that we come back tonight and make the presentation to the full council. So I am going to read to you the letter that was presented to the town, and it reads: On behalf of the Island Community House, Team Brianna, and our many donors, it's been our pleasure to work with you during the planning and creation of Brianna's Kindness Park. As our fundraising has wrapped up, we take great pride in presenting you with a check for $48,602.76. Being aware that Brianna's Kindness Park is an ongoing project, we request to remain involved in the planning process during completion. We kindly ask that this donation be earmarked to be used for projects that have been already discussed by the Chincoteague Recreation and Community Enhancement Committee, such as the addition of shade, planning and creation of the hangout section, which we're currently hoping will be geared toward teenagers who are looking for a place to go somewhere and spend some time on their phones, and that's in the works. That's not in the letter. I'm just adding that on. And also making an area that is handicapped accessible, which we were not able to do during Phase 1. If the need for community fundraising comes up in the future for Brianna's Kindness Park, we would be happy to step up to the plate, be the cheerleaders, and continue to be the driving force to raise awareness and funds for future projects. The town has done a commendable job on this project, and we look forward to offering a helping hand as Brianna's Kindness Park moves toward completion. This park has been a tremendous asset to the community. Congratulations on a job well done. Respectfully, Team Brianna.
All right. It's not on our agendas, but we have public comment. So, Mr. Talbot, would you read the rules?
Yes, sir. Rules for public comment. All attendees wishing to speak shall sign up on the provided roster.
Speakers must preface all comments by stating their name and their 911 address. Comments should be limited to 4 minutes per speaker. A speaker cannot reserve or transfer time to another speaker. Speakers must not use profanity, threatening language, or otherwise be abusive of council members or staff. Speakers shall not address specific personnel matters which involve individual employees in a public meeting. Members of council will not answer questions directly or engage with speakers. Specific questions shall be directed to the mayor, who shall, at his direction, or discretion, I should say, shall solicit a response from the appropriate staff member.
Thank you. We've got one tonight. Ms. Farley?
I wasn't going to speak, but we seem to be buzzing about murals in town, which is really exciting. Patricia Farley, 3243 Lisa's Lane. I have been involved with public art for many years. I was on the Art Commission in Pittsburgh. We did many projects, sculptures, murals, all sorts of things. And I think that what I want to encourage council to do is think about ways that you can bureaucratize the process of reviewing and approving murals, where they go, what the content is, what materials are used. I sent the current list of the process for approving all public art in Pittsburgh, which is obviously a huge city and far more elaborate than anything we would need to do. But it's a blueprint for the process, and it. We are blessed with an island full of artists, and we have art everywhere, but we don't have a lot of art in the public realm. 2 examples that are wildly popular, and as far as I know, never received any kind of review or approval, is the mural in Watson Park, which was done pretty much by CCA before I was on the board of CCA, and people love it. It seems to be also lasting a long time. The other one is the Misty statue downtown, which is, if you ever want to see the value of public art, sit in a bench across the street and watch the visitors come and have their picture taken in front of that statue. It is nonstop. I don't drive through downtown ever without seeing somebody at the statue loving it. I was thrilled when I heard the mayor at the workshop meeting talk about his wish to revitalize downtown again. Artists and art always have a positive impact on economic stability. It's well known that artists move into a deteriorating neighborhood, make it fancy, and then have to move because they can no longer afford to live there. Art does the same thing. It says to the community and to the visitors, particularly here, we love this town. This is our history. This is something that we value. And right now, downtown is in great need of some love. It does not look loved right now for a number of reasons. I would be happy. I've also been in touch with, through a mutual friend who wondered if I would be interested with the process that Princess Anne used. They just had a mural competition, and they had, money is available. Arts organizations, national arts organizations love murals, and there is money available. There are also buildings available. I know of 2 that would love to have a mural on them, one of which used to have vines on it that I think was mentioned in the meeting last week. It requires some bureaucracy. It requires some way of reviewing procedures, just like everything is. I don't think the BZA is the body that should do it, with all respect to the BZA. I think the Planning Commission is more suited, or a committee of the Planning Commission. I have sent if anybody wants to see any of these documents that I sent to the mayor and to Mr. Tolbert, I'd be happy to send them and also talk with you about the process. It's been years since I've been involved. I'm certainly far from being an expert on murals or public art, but I know we have the capacity here to improve at least downtown and probably other areas with art. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Farley. Moving right along, staff reports. Mr. Talbert.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Reporting once again on the GAC plant, granulated activated charcoal plant that was erected for us over at Wallops. The latest test results from Wallops Lake facility for the GAC plant were from sampling taking place in January and February. Results of this indicate that the pre-filtered sample still contains PFAS, 5 to 25 times EPA's advisory level, which is 70 nanograms per liter. The effluent or post-filtered samples are all lower than 3 nanograms per liter or undetectable. So it continues to do an outstanding job of removing the PFAS, which is its intention. The GAC system has treated approximately, and I know it says here $34.6 million gallons. As of today, I believe I got an email from Wallops, and it's over 38 million gallons it's treated to date, and all samples have been similar to the ones I just quoted. So no issues there with the GAC plant. Everything is going according to plan, and they will even at some point lengthen the period between sampling because it's doing well. Something that's not in here is they took some midpoint samples, and the midpoint samples still contain some PFAS, but once they got through to the finished port and they took the finished samples, it was gone. So again, doing what it's supposed to do. As you know, NASA would like us to move our wells from their property, and they would like that so much that they have written legislation that basically gives the town a good sum of money to accomplish this. The town has bought a piece of property just south of Wallops for this purpose. The legislation is pending before Congress. My understanding is it's in a conference committee right now being marked up, and we have an opportunity to modify that language finally. I think I told you some months ago that NASA sent me the language for the original bill. I attempted to make a few changes, but they said that it was too late to make changes that are meaningful because they were afraid it would go to the back of the line. So we now have a chance to add a few comments. One of the things that we intend to ask for is, well, two things basically. One thing we're going to ask for is some more time. Harvey and I spoke to a geologist who works for DEQ a few weeks ago, and 5 years is not going to be enough time to probably secure the permits and do the engineering that we want to do. The second thing is we would like to really look seriously at an RO plant, reverse osmosis plant. They're becoming more popular, more reliable. The geologists we spoke to, Mr. Bruce, rattled off a half a dozen of them that are in the Tidewater area. So we're going to make some plans to go over and take a look at one of these, see how it's done, speak to the guys that manage that, and really take a hard look at that as an option for us. That could even probably be done on this island rather than having transmission lines coming 4 miles across the road. So that is what is new on the well front. I even got a picture here of what an RO plant might look like. It's a fairly clean, fairly neat operation. Does the trade-off here is the test well that we'd have to sink. We would get a sample of the water and the water quality. The higher the chloride content, the more power it would take to remove the chloride, and the more money it would take to operate the plant. At some point, you reach the point of it not being feasible. So the test well that we would sink originally would be all very important. Marijuana legislation, I know this has been on everybody's. Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I want to ask a question
Go
about
ahead,
that. They're in talks right now as to the original language of the bill would provide up to $14 million for the relocation of the wells over a 5-year period. Is $14 million going to be enough? In
We-
5 years, that's gonna be 20 million, that's the way I think.
Right now, we think so. The original quote that we came up with and this is not something that was in-house, this was something that we got from an actual consulting firm, is that the well would be 6 figures, the test well would be 6 figures. The actual plant is going to be on the order of $5 to $7 million. So we are thinking right now, but we certainly want to do this work and have a direction that we want to head in. And we're going to stay with groundwater at the Matthews property. And again, speaking to the geologist, he said even though the Matthews property has seemed to not be viable at this point, don't give up on that. He said because the efficiency of the well that's being constructed means everything, and that we may be able to sink some more efficient wells that will actually do the job for us. So in other words, we still have a lot of work to do to decide which way we want to go. NASA giving us 5 years, it sounds like a long time in the construction world when you have to permit and design things, and something this complicated and this structured certainly is going to take a few more years. So we want to make sure we have enough time to do this. And speaking with NASA or WALPS, they tell us that this would be, the money would be transmitted to us on a reimbursable basis. So once we spend it, they reimburse us, so we'll have the front money.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Marijuana legislation, I know it's on everybody's radar because of what was passed last year. To make this long story short as I can, the legislation that was passed in 2021 in the General Assembly had a recommit clause in it, and the General Assembly this year failed to do that. The result of that not being done is local municipalities do not have the authority to act on the legislation that was passed last year. We don't have the authority to ask for a referendum, nor do we have an authority to adopt parallel or mirrored ordinances that are based on the state's ordinances. So, again, long story short, we have to wait for the next General Assembly session. Hopefully they pass something that we can act on, and or however they're going to change the law. There's a lot up in the air right now with respect to this legislation. And I spoke to a very knowledgeable gentleman at VML who is getting ready to write an article on this, so I look forward to that. But in any event, I had on the agenda originally a few months ago for this meeting to adopt a resolution that would request the Circuit Court to referendum act for retail sales for the town of Shanksville. That is unnecessary at this point. Moving right along, financial report. As you can see, we are heavy on revenues right now, and we are a little lighter on expenses than we expected. A few of the highlights, we just completed the spring paving, so that's going to catch up. Trolley's going to catch up. Had a talk with Larry today, and we will be billing some more out on Trolley, so that will definitely catch up. And at the Budget and Personnel Committee a week from tomorrow, we'll be discussing the state of our revenues over expenses, whatever that may be. Any questions on the finances?
Anybody?
Moving along to transient and occupancy tax, you can see that, meals and transient tax. You can see that meals still did, considering the state of restaurants and the labor market right now, I still think outstanding, $52,000 for the month of March, and that exceeds everything except last March, which at $56,000. And again, still think that might have been a little bit of a bubble is the way it's looking right now. Looking down at TOT, you can see we're about a third lower this March than we were in March of 21. Again, what is the cause? What is the actual cause? You can pick any number of things. We've certainly had a cooler spring. It could have been a little bit of a bubble. People may be going other places. We're not sure. Hopefully this picks back up. But again, March and FY22 was still better than March and FY19. So it's still a considerable increase. Looking at our overall, we are still 139% of our budget for transient occupancy right now, and meals were 116% of our budget for meals, so still doing very well in that respect. Building and zoning, picking up in the spring as you would expect in April. 61 building permits. Mark continues to be busy. 26 business license site visits. Right on down the line, everything is busier. Total value of building construction that month, $1.7 million, which is considerable. We are experiencing some disconnect. I say disconnect, maybe not the right word, but we are still experiencing some lag in the obtaining of business licenses for short-term rentals, primarily Airbnb, some Vrbo. So we'll be looking at, in the office, looking at some options that we have there as far as ordinances and things that we can do to encourage people to pick up a business license. And of course, if they don't have a business license, then they're not paying any transient occupancy tax on those rentals either. So a two-pronged thing there. We're going to be looking at what state code allows and what we can do in the future to encourage compliance with this. And Mr. Mayor, just one other thing. Publicly here, everyone knows, but publicly our Public Works Director, Mr. Harvey Spurlock, has retired from the town. He's overseen some very large projects and been here since August of 2009. He's done a great job for the town. I want to wish Harvey well in public for the first time. And he will continue his career, at least for the interim, at Walks Lake Facility doing some work for them. The Public Works Director position as well as the Civic Center Director positions have been advertised on the town's website. They are both of those positions have been advertised on the job site at VML on their website, and they're also in the newspaper this Friday and next. Both jobs close on June 1st, and I have at least one application for each job at this point. So, other than that, I'll take any questions you may have.
On that VRBO, there was one time when they were sending us the transient tax. Are they still doing that, or how's that working out?
They are, and there's a problem with that. As it was passed originally with the state, they send us the tax, but they are not obligated to send us any information on who they're remitting that tax for. So we get one check, and they say this is for all the taxes. We've had conversations with them. VML has tried their best, because everybody in the state's in the same boat. VML has tried their best. We even had a conference call with a vice president, I believe, at Expedia here several months ago, and basically she said it's a poor law, and we'd like your help in changing it. And we all loaded up the comment section in the Zoom meeting after that. But my understanding is that there was a law proposed in the General Assembly this term that corrects that and requires them to also transmit the information on the owners that they are remitting the taxes for, which is what we've been asking all along, because we can't really, we get a check. That's it. You get a check. It may be $6,000 we get a check for. We have no clue whose taxes that is paying. For a while, we didn't cash the checks because we were afraid that if we did, we were accepting something that's improper, but finally we started cashing the checks. What we have asked owners to do is the owner has a dashboard at which they can see when their taxes have been paid, when Vrbo, or I should say some of the other third-party vendors as well, have paid their taxes. So we asked the owner to bring in a screenshot of their dashboard saying, yes, Vrbo has paid my taxes to the town of Chinkty. But we're relying on the owner to do that from their website. And that's the only way we have of telling who's paid what taxes. So we're basically accepting the money, not knowing who's paid who hasn't. Hopefully the new law will come into play, and then by the fall they have that in place. And Expedia, HomeAway, I think is another one. Vrbo, there's another 2 or 3. I can't recall the names right now. But hopefully they start sending in the tax information along with the payment. And by the way, Expedia told us that Their legal department said that it was, it was not advisable for them to remit that information because it was privileged. And we're the taxing authority. We already have that information. Just tell us which one. You know? So they basically don't want to do it. So, but hopefully in a few months that straightens itself out once the new law takes effect.
Anyone further? Police report, Chief Fisher.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Couple corrections, minor corrections on it. We get them towards the middle of the week, so we had a big weekend this weekend. Had 2 officers working selective enforcement, so the citations went up to 56 citations rather than 40 and 19 warnings. Also, we had 1 extra arrest. It was 17 arrests, 7 arrests and 13 charges on that. This is correct. And on April 4th, Major Greenlee went to attend the FBI National Academy. He's advised me this is the 282nd session. He was scheduled the year that I started to go to that, and of course COVID got us and has knocked it out. They haven't had the National Academy for the last 2 years. And from what he's advised me, I believe it's 480 some people from all over the world that attend that academy. So it's very good experience for him, and I think it'll help the department and the town out once he gets back. That'll be for 10 weeks. He'll be out there in Quantico. Also on April 4th, we welcomed the new patrolman, Todd Matthews, Aaron and Lonnie Matthews' son. Todd's been riding with the officers now, getting a feel for everything. He's done good so far. Got a good report back on him. Everything's going good with him so far. On April 9th, we assisted the North Accomack Little League with their parade here for opening day. And on April the 13th, dispatchers, all of our full-time dispatchers, Melissa Hart, and Hal Lane, and Grace Warner, all completed crisis intervention team training. I know y'all heard me talk about crisis intervention team training before. Very, very good class. And basically what they did was they came up with it was a 1-day training for the dispatchers so far. So ours, and they opened it up to all dispatching on shore. I think some from the 911 center and some from Accomack and Northampton Sheriff's Office also attended it. And when they came back, all 3 of them said it was very, very good training for them. They all learned a lot. So that was it for us, pretty much for this month.
Thanks, Chief. Anyone have any questions?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Denise.
Robbie, can you tell us again what the laws say about those little e-bikes that the kids are riding?
The Virginia state law, basically in a nutshell, is at 14 years and under, they must have someone 18 years old accompany them as they are riding them. So if they're 14 years or younger, then they can't ride them by themselves. That's the e-bikes and those electric scooters.
Okay. And that's
on a state
Virginia,
highway.
Virginia state law.
That's Virginia state law on a state highway. Yes.
Okay. And they're supposed to have helmets and all that
No,
good stuff? They don't
there
have
is
to have
no-
that? Nothing?
There is
Okay.
no laws on that at all.
Okay, all right, that's cool. All right. That's basically everything in a nutshell. I'm hearing a lot of chatter on the street about, all these kids riding, and most of the chatter I'm hearing is not that they're riding, but they're zigzagging here everywhere, and they're getting into traffic, and
I think that's why, Virginia put the law like it was, knowing that, a child that age, is probably not going to be as careful as somebody older, and that's what we've seen, so far also. Most of what we've had has been, I won't call it reckless, but it's been careless operation, yes. Yes.
all right, thank you.
Thank you.
All righty, Mike, we'll go back to you since Harvey's not here.
All right. This is Harvey's report, and I'll do this for him. Of course, we continue construction at Brianna's Cottage Park. If you haven't been there in a while, you need to go by and take a look at it. It's really coming together. A lot of the sidewalk work was completed on the east side of the parking lot. The restrooms are nearing completion, at least the structure is nearing completion. I talked to the electrician today. They're expecting some material in, so that'll be done here soon, along with the plumbing, and we'll finish the building up. The pad was finally corrected for the pavilion, which you can see they're finally completed. The contractor got that knocked out, so we can start erecting the pavilion at any time. Paving operations have been completed except for some of the lining. Paving include Ridge Road to Church Street and Bunny Road, Division Street and North Main Street from Misty Meadows to the turnaround is complete. And they have, as you can see here, have one of my pet peeves, the stormwater, not stormwater, but stormwater grates have been adjusted to accommodate the additional asphalt, which is always an issue when you overlay roads, existing roads. They've prepped the parking lot and slash pickleball courts at Don J. Amaron Gym. If not for the plant going down that day, they would have finished it. It was supposed to be done last Friday. The plant's back up, and as soon as it got up, the town of Shingatig got bumped for another project for Branscombe, but they'll be back on it here shortly. But it has been prepped. Once that's all completed, pickleball courts will be laid out on the east side of the parking lot, and we'll lay out parking spaces from the gym on the west side of it up next to the building. If you haven't been to the firehouse lately, the old firehouse, there's a brand new stair chair there that makes us legal to rent things on the second floor. And the last two spaces on the second floor have been spoken for. The potential leaser has told me he will come in next week to sign a lease for those last two spaces, and that'll make every space in the old firehouse that is available to rent rented. And we are perfectly legal with this new chair, so I hope that gives us years of service. Installation of new fuel sales system's been completed down at the harbor. We had a few problems with it going in. We had it repaired, I believe, last Friday. Most of the reports I've had since then have been good. There have been a few that said they still have problems, but the harbor master reports that he thinks it's, given the number of calls he did not receive over the weekend, he thinks it's operating fairly good. And I'm sure that he would have gotten a call had
He was busy this weekend.
it not worked. New storm drain associated piping on Teal Lane, you can see that there. They completed a much greater volume of normal brush pickup. It was a huge volume of brush that people put out this year.
No, it's my fault.
And we're going to have to remind folks that when we do brush pickup, we try to limit that to one pickup truckload per property.
Spoke too soon.
Quantifying what pickup load is.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
18-wheeler
Big
full?
pickup. Big pickup.
Yeah.
we're not going to get out there with a tape measure or anything. We've done some regrading here recently of the Ocean Breeze roads, the ones that aren't paved. Performed some routine equipment, park and office complex maintenance, as we always do. Routine pavement repair, weed control, traffic control device maintenance, water supply distribution repair. That's an ongoing thing. We do that all the time. They've installed 14 new services in late March. We had a run on water services here that put us way over the budget on revenues for that item, which is a good thing. Mr. Bobby is working, putting larvicide out. The trucks are up and ready to go, and the drivers are ready to go. So once it becomes necessary, we'll have trucks on the road spraying for mosquitoes. Upcoming projects, we've still got more to do at Brianna's Kindness Park. We've got to finish the bathrooms. We've got to erect the pavilion. As you heard Donna say here just a short time ago, there's more things that the committee would like to do. The tennis and basketball court rehab will start in a few weeks. The contractors put us on the schedule. Their big thing is they have to obtain the materials. They're difficult to get. And we did have just this week, Friday morning, Harvey and I spoke with the Kathy, the president of the Pickleball and Tennis Association, and they would like to, I informed them that we were not going to seal the new pickleball courts, that we were just going to put lines on the new asphalt, and they would like them sealed and styled like tennis courts, and they're willing to put up the money to do this, which I gladly accepted. It's about $13,000, by the way, to do that. So I intended to maybe put it in a budget down the line, but they would really like to see that done. So she's going to get the donations together, and she's already started lining them up. So we'll have some very professional-looking pickleball courts. And with that, that's Public Works, and I'll turn it over unless anybody has any questions to Mr. Rush.
Yeah. Mr. Manager, we have one question. How are we making out with the utility? You know, we're charging for utilities, and we're actually paying utilities at the firehouse.
We are charging a flat rate for utilities per space that we
Right.
set, and we just put that as part of the rent that's written into the lease.
Right, but I mean, but how is the utilities?
Oh, how's it? It's covering it so far.
Hey,
Yeah,
that's what I'm
it's
asking.
covering
That's
it
what
so
I'm
far.
asking. Yes.
I haven't gotten down into the nuts and bolts and where we're the way we're doing it. You know, I can make an analysis, but it's going to be a rough analysis. It either covers it or it doesn't. And in either case, we've got this for a year.
I mean, the rent will cover it. But I'm saying is, but I was hoping that the utilities what we're charging will come close to
Yes.
what there actually is. You know what I mean? I'm not saying-
Yes,
That's-
it's
that's
covering
all.
it so far.
Yeah.
It's not covered. I'm hopeful it'll cover the stair chair.
Okay.
We can get something out of this.
Yeah.
But, you know, and hopefully this new stair chair isn't as temperamental as the former one. So.
Shouldn't be, it's new. Mr. Rush?
Mayor and Council, good evening. Wait for Mr. Talbert to pull up my presentation. So as Chief Fisher pointed out, the reports were in the middle of last week, and you know, again, we had some adjustments to our numbers for the month. As you can see up there, we ended up breaking the 100 mark for April, which is just kind of unheard of. And it was 13 more than April of 2021. So again, things are staying busy, and it does correlate when you look at the meals, transient occupancy, but also you got to think about our aging population here. So it's certainly supportive of the numbers. Another thing I'd like to put out here, again, no identifying information, but if you can tell, that's Route 13. That vehicle is actually facing southbound on Route 13. The lanes that you see through the woods there are the northbound. Mr. Taylor, just a while ago, was talking, about how you see emergency equipment everywhere all the time. And you got to remember, our folks are coming back from hospitals when they transport. Your families, wives, husbands, children, so forth, drive these roads, and you may see us. They were actually the first one on scene. The airbag dust hadn't cleared yet. You see the fire folks there on that first picture on the left. They were actually getting there after our folks had already started care on the individual. So again, you never know where we might show up. We're there. So even, our families and so forth are protected out on these roads. Not to take away from those folks that run these areas, but again, we just may be the first one that shows up out there. And I just wanted to give kudos to the crew here. Supervisor Bars went through the incident command training, the ICS 400. 300 and 400 are all classroom, so that's required at the supervisory level. So he was in Chesapeake last week for 2 days doing that with a mix of folks from VMRC. The gentleman there on the right was from...
He's the deputy city manager of Virginia Beach.
So you can see there's quite a mix of folks in the class. So on the emergency management side of the house, things are still busy and continuing to be busy. But we're still continuing with our weather monitoring, COVID monitoring. Began the after action for the aircraft crash. Fireworks planning, of course, pony penning's coming up, and then there's another rocket launch coming up on the 15th of August. Is the rough schedule now. So stay tuned on time and place for that. The hazard mitigation plan, which will be before you for adoption tonight. Not the entire plan, just Chapter 13. I know I heard people say they were trying to read the whole plan a while ago. So again, that's where we're at with those things. Another thing on your agenda tonight is to recognize Hurricane Preparedness Week, which is May 1st through May 7th. So just to do a quick recap for those folks out there in YouTube land and those here in the building. First thing that we'd like for folks to do is determine the risk. What's your risk? And we know severe weather, tornadoes, hurricanes, flooding from tides, those are pretty big risks for us. And then an evacuation plan. Anybody from Chincoteague, we know you're in a Zone A, which means when Zone A is called, you're to evacuate. But then again, we play some different things there as far as understanding what goes on here and whatnot. So when the mayor gives you direction, that's what we're going to follow. But you also need to know, where are you going to go? Do you have family you can go to? That's highly recommended. Are you able to get out of the area and go to a hotel somewhere? That's also a great idea. And if not, do you know where your shelters are at? So have a plan, and a lot of folks out there, including myself, have pets. Plan for those pets. That's something that gets overlooked until the last minute. Tomorrow we're going to look at assembling disaster supplies, and I know I'll put that up here quite a bit, but food and water. You should have enough food and water for 3 to 5 days, especially if you're caught, you're trapped somewhere. I know on the news they show, FEMA's coming to town, and it's the greatest thing. And it is when we're able to get those supply streams up and running. But I can tell you, it will take us more on the 5-day side than the 3-day side to get those streams up and running. So you need to be prepared. Medicine, cash, also radios, battery-operated radios, so you know what's going on. On Wednesday, May the 4th, look at your insurance. Make sure you've got the appropriate insurance. Look at your wind deductibles. Also look at your flood insurance, because remember, any damage that's caused by flooding will not be covered by your homeowners. It has to be covered by flood insurance. On Thursday, strengthen your home. Look for things that need to be fixed, loose siding, loose shingles, things like that. But also remember, in the time of an emergency, outdoor items are very dangerous. If they don't fly through your window, they're going to fly through your neighbor's window and maybe ruin a good friendship. So again, look around the home and see what you can tidy up and make secure. And again, with that neighbor, help those neighbors, especially the elderly. We want to make sure they have a process, especially if they don't have family members that are easily accessible to them or no longer accessible. Make sure they have a plan as well. Check up on your neighbors. And then finishing out Hurricane Preparedness Week, a written plan. Can't say enough about having plans. A written plan doesn't have to be more than a sheet of notebook paper, but have a contact list. Know who you're going to call, because in times of disaster, it's not going to be as simple as looking at your phone. Another thing to remember is have one contact outside of the impact area, meaning have somebody that's in Tennessee or Oregon or California. Reason being is the cell lines, the landlines will be tied up and or destroyed. You can get a text message out pretty easy in the time of a disaster. Go back to when the rocket exploded in, I believe that was 2014. Nobody could get a phone call out, but you could get a text message out. So it's very important to remember that, and somebody out of the area. Have all your family members actually check in with that person. So that way you might not be able to call down the street, but you both can get a hold of somebody in Oregon and know that one another is okay. So have that written plan. Now on to COVID. Again, we're watching some numbers climb. The 7-day positivity rate for today is 9.8%. Just a month ago, we were at 4.3. So you can see we've climbed, quite a bit over the last month. And if you go back to May 3rd of last year, 2021, we were at 4.6%. So again, we're starting to see a little climb, and like I had said before, that's to be expected. The number 481, again, was the total reported, and the zip code reporting stopped on March the 14th of this year. So what are we doing now? Again, people are still encouraged to get their vaccinations. And if you've been vaccinated, get your booster. Talk with your doctor and make sure you get your boosters. So in summary, EMS again remains busy. We should be weather aware all the time, not just during hurricane season, which starts June the 1st. There's always that continued potential for those COVID-19 infection waves, and before you know it, the pony swim will be upon us. Any questions?
How old was that picture?
I want to say that's 2019. That
One
one's
on the left?
Oh, on the left? That picture is
Look
in
at the
the
ambulance.
early 2000s.
Yeah.
Yep, we did a training over there. We tried to train over at the lighthouse about every 2 to 3 years to capture any new folks. But yeah, that one goes back a while if you look at some of the folks that are in there. But yeah, it's a neat place to actually train because things do happen inside of there. And unfortunately, there's not an elevator.
Big rope.
Any questions?
Anybody? Thank you, Ron.
Mm-hmm.
All right, next we have the committee reports. We just have one committee, the Harbor Committee. We discussed the boat ramp down at Memorial Park getting replaced. We do have preliminary drawings for that. Do we have the finals, Mike, or is
We
that?
do not. The engineer is working on them. We have talked about it. He is working on it. He took all of our comments from the Harbor Committee, and he's working on that now. He said it should not take him too long, and he'll produce those for us.
And I assume as soon as they're presented, we'll take off, because that's what the committee discussed was doing this ramp as soon as we get the drawings without delay, because that ramp is unusable as it is, and we're just going to make it better. We also discussed the removing of the pier, the wooden pier for the floating dock. We're waiting on the manufacturer, Ravens Marine, to get in the floats to make the floating dock. We're still waiting, right?
Yes, sir. As of Friday when I called last, we're still waiting.
So in other words, it's not going to get done this summer. But we're still waiting, and they'll be done when we get them. They'll be postponed till the fall, I would guess now, because boating is getting busy. If anybody rode down to the harbor this weekend, there was no place to park a trailer. There were that many people out fishing. Anyhow, go ahead,
The
Denise.
Memorial Park ramp is out of commission right now?
No, it's not out of commission. It's still usable, but it's not a very good ramp. So it's usable, it's passable for a smaller boat, but I wouldn't try to put a pontoon boat in there.
Do we have any signage or anything down there stating such, or should we?
Not that I'm aware of.
It's a high tide ramp.
Yeah, it's a high tide ramp. Most of the general public knows that. Or it doesn't take them long to find it out. That's something we might want to, well, it all depends. We could put a temporary sign down there, Mike, I would guess.
I think we should have something for the people
Yeah.
that don't know.
Caution, use at
Yeah.
your own.
Yeah. Something.
Yeah, you use at your own peril. I mean, it is usable, it's serviceable, but it's just not what I would consider a good ramp.
There was a suggestion just before the meeting started that we might lake with kayaks only.
That would
Telling
start
everybody
something.
to call you then.
Yeah. No, thank you. I'm not gonna suggest that. Any questions about, the fuel systems are gotten replaced. They were fine, this weekend. Any questions about the harbor or the boat ramps or anything like that? All righty, thank you. We'll move on to, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the minutes of our meeting April 4th and April 21st. Are there any additions or corrections?
So move to adopt?
Motion and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Moving on to, while we're all here, Mr. Talbot has a budget presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and My understanding is we haven't had a presentation on the actual budget in a few years. I know we haven't had it since I've been here. I tried to put this together just to do some, promote some more understanding of the budget and the budget process amongst the general public. I mean, the council and certainly the staff do this almost daily. So it's basically for the public, whoever's here with us and might be watching. So enclosed for your review and consideration is proposed FY23 budget. The goal of this budget, as always, is to provide and maintain high-quality services and facilities while using the town's resources both wisely and efficiently. The following presentation attempts to explain the budget process as well as the sources of revenue, operational expenses, and capital improvements to give the citizens of Chincoteague a more clear understanding of the use of their tax dollars. So what does the town fund? Well, we fund 24-hour police protection and 24-hour emergency services. And you might say, well, that's pretty basic, and it is, but I think all of us here are old enough to remember when that wasn't necessarily the case. EMS was something that was all volunteer at the time. Police protection may have been all night. It wasn't always all night, but in the later years it might have been, but not to the level that we have now, where we have a few officers and the capabilities that we have now. So yes, 24-hour police protection and emergency services are huge deals for us. Public Works. I think everyone, we've been touting the abilities of our Public Works Department here for the last several months, and being able to do construction, advanced maintenance. They operate a water utility. They do a lot of things and do it well, and especially keep up all the parks that we have now. Domestic water utility, yes, I think everyone understands Chincoteague has some of the best water anywhere. I was speaking to our new water supervisor today, and the water reports to the Office of Drinking Water are due the 10th of the month, and that's standard throughout the state. And I would say that I already signed them today, and they're on their way. Today's the 2nd of the month, so they're on the ball. Everything is operated well and well within the limits of the Virginia Health Department. Town administration, we have in the office here, we have great staff. They know their jobs, they do their jobs, and they do them well. And Parks and Recreation, I would lay our parks and the quality of our parks and the number of our parks against any community in the state of Virginia. I think we have some wonderful facilities. And we have a number of facilities that offer a bunch of different things. Tourism and economic development. As you know, we fund we help fund some of the chamber's operations, and we do fund the community center across the street here, which is going to be a new development for us this year. Street maintenance. I think we all remember a time when street maintenance wasn't what it is today. When we did not see VDOT here very often, and repaired streets was a very spotty proposition. Now we pave over roads that are starting to get bad, and we do it proactively rather than reactively. So we really don't have potholes in most places as you would expect, and you see in a lot of cities. Trash collection, it's a very, very economical venture for residents. $2, a little over $2 a week. It's for 96 gallons of trash. It's a very, 130 gallons of trash. It's very economical, and the town funds that. Mosquito control is both a nuisance and also a health undertaking. And for the limited crew we have, I think they do an outstanding job. The harbor, we've talked about the harbor. It's a very nice facility. It's well run, and it's ever improving. We've just talked about some of the improvements that are getting ready to happen there now, and as we continue to upgrade things down there, it continues to be better and better. Boat ramps, are 5 boat ramps on the island. You pay one small fee, and you can use any of them for an entire year. And the second boat you have only costs you $1. So it's the best deal anywhere, and I have not seen, by the way, if you look at some of the other towns in the Eastern Shore, that's not always the case. The Civic Center, is again, that's something new for us this year. The town is taking over operation of the Civic Center. We've always supported it, but now we're going to take over operation of it as the authority dissolves. And There's a strategic plan that the council has asked me to do, which I've got pretty much done, that I'll present to you in another meeting. But we've got hopefully hopefully going to make some improvements over there in the types of functions and the amount of functions that happen over there, and get some more use out of that building. Cemeteries, this town takes care of, as far as mowing, takes care of just about every cemetery on the island. And while they're only mandated to cut them three times a year, we do much more than that in cutting, as well as some other care as well. And a trolley service, which the trolley they operate during the season. They're getting ready to start up for the seafood festival this weekend. We'll have at least 2 trolleys running, hopefully 3. It's a great little service. If you haven't ridden it, pay a quarter or 50 cents and go out and take a ride on it. It's really interesting. So these are the things that the town funds with, the major things that the town funds with the revenue that we receive. The structure of our budget. The town budget consists of 5 separate funds. The first being the general fund is the main thing that covers most of the functions you think about in government. And that is a government fund. The harbor fund obviously funds everything at the harbor. The harbor is an enterprise fund. The trolley fund we just talked about, that's a bit of a hybrid. Water fund, again a true enterprise fund, and the center fund, which of course is brand new to our accounting system this year, and that's a bit of a hybrid as well. Government general funds receive revenues primarily from taxes, which is our general fund. That's the only government, really truly government fund that we have. Enterprise funds receive revenue primarily from user fees and services, which you can see at the harbor and center. At the harbor and the water funds. They are true enterprise funds where the majority of fees and fees for services pay for the operation. The trolley fund, trolley is funded considerably by government grants, which is why I'm calling that a bit of a hybrid. And the center, as you know, is funded, has a considerable amount of its funding coming from the town's general fund, or from our excise taxes, which is why I'm calling that a hybrid as well. We would like to move, I don't know about the trolley fund ever becoming anywhere near an enterprise account, but we would like to move the center fund certainly more toward that enterprise target than it is right now, and I think that may be possible. Each fund, each of these 5 general funds have to balance independently. We cannot use monies from other funds that have a surplus to balance a fund which has a shortfall. So each must balance within themselves. The process, the budget process, preparation, I meet with all the department heads about November, maybe early December of the year before, and we discuss, the department heads bring to me their needs, what they think they'll need to operate as far as personnel, equipment, capital improvements, that sort of thing for the next year. It's the time when you basically break out your wish list, everything you need and everything you want, and you bring in and we discuss it. Year-to-date expenditures are reviewed in early January. We're going to take a look at the first 6 months, basically, of our budget that we're currently operating under, and see how we're doing. Are we over? Are we under? Did we make any big mistakes? You know, how's it going? Because that'll give us some insight on how we're going to budget that item in the coming year. I also try to have conversations with local business owners. That assists me in projecting the level of revenues for the following year. I'm going to talk to people who have rental businesses or hotels or store owners and say, you know, how's your business been? What do you see coming? How your reservations, that sort of thing, restaurant owners, and let them tell me what they foresee, because they're the best, really, forecasters of what business is going to be like for the following year. The balance of budget, of course, has to be balanced, and we present the first draft of the budget purposely unbalanced. And that's when we put everything in there, everything that was on the wish list for the department heads, everything that we think we're going to need, we stick in there and see where it comes out. We know it's not going to be balanced, but we want to see how we look, and that's the first look at the budget. Subsequent drafts, we're going to get in there and with council's input and the staff's, we're going to get in there and start looking at, taking a hard look at the expenditures and what we really need to operate, what's prudent and that sort of thing, and we'll bring it down to a balanced form and then we may do a couple fine tunings after that. Again, each of the 5 funds must be balanced independently, and of course the entire budget must be balanced. Approving the budget, that's one of the things we're doing tonight. We're getting ready to start a public hearing after the presentation on the budget, in which all the residents in town will have an opportunity to get up and say how they feel about the budget and give the council their input. The budget is formally presented at the public hearing, and the budget has to be advertised at least 7 days in a paper of record, 7 days before the public hearing. The council cannot act on that budget tonight. It has to sit another 7 days before the council can approve the budget and appropriate the funds. So that will be done. It will be advertised in the paper. Well, it's advertised. It was advertised 7 days ago in the last paper. We're having a public hearing tonight, and at the workshop meeting, we'll present the budget for your approval and appropriation. So that's the approval process. Highlights of this budget: first is the addition of the Chincoteague Recreation and Civic Center Fund, which we've talked about. That's brand new for us. It's a whole other division of our budget. We're having an increase in employer contribution of the Virginia retirement system to the tune of 2.81%, which is significant. The VRS will hold that rate for 2 years, as is their custom, but that is a significant increase for the town. And that's as you know, the town contributes, the employees contributes 100% of the employees' retirement to this system. So that's a direct cost of our payroll of 2.81% this year. We've also provided for an increase in employee health care of 5%. We do not have a final number from our health insurer yet on what that increase will be. We know there will be an increase. In fact, I have a meeting tomorrow. Hopefully the lady that's coming will have some answers for me, but we're hoping the increase is within this 5%. We have an addition of 2 new positions for the Chincoteague Police Department this year that was approved by the Public Safety Committee, as well as the Budget and Personnel and Council. We have continued funding of our street maintenance and paving, of course. Some highlights of our capital improvements this year: we're going to rebuild. We're going to rebuild the boat ramp at Memorial Park. We'll be replacing a backhoe, or we've budgeted a replacement backhoe for the Public Works Department. A new patrol car for the Chincoteague Police Department. We're going to replace the Cropper Street water and storm sewer lines, as well as the new pavement, and we will put new sidewalks there as well. And the replacement of the last wooden finger pier at the Curtis Marriott Harbor, that will be our, hopefully will be approved by VPA. We presented that back in February, and we hope the Virginia Port Authority will approve that, and we should hear this month whether they did or not. So the summary of this year's budget: the general fund is a little over almost $7 million, I should say, and the general fund is made up of the general government, emergency services, public works, mosquito control, roads, police, and dispatch. And you can see the numbers for each of them, and all of those departments total $6,879,000. The harbor fund is at $1,135,000, and I should say that about half of that is capital improvements, which is the reason that fund is so high this year. Again, about $215,000 for the VPA dock that we've been approved for, and the Memorial Park boat ramp is in that number as well, which inflates that number. The trolley fund, you'll notice that usually is under $100,000, but we have a capital improvement there this year of $165,000 for a new trolley, which inflates that number. The new trolley, I should say, would actually cost the town about $6,000. That is mostly paid for with a grant. The water fund at $1,144,000, and that's about normal. And the center fund, this is brand new to us this year, but that number is highly inflated as well, as we intend to do some capital improvements there. So all those funds total a proposed FY23 budget of $9,859,666. So discussing revenues for the entire town now, these are the 6 highest revenues you see here. Our water department at 12%, harbor revenues at 12%, grants that we receive, including roads, DPA and a few others at 13%. Transient occupancy tax at $1.7 million is 17% of our entire revenues. Meals tax at 12% at $1.4 million. And you'll notice our real estate taxes of the six highest is the smallest of those six at $657,000. And I should say that the council at the last meeting approved lowering that tax rate to 5.9. I do apologize for not correcting that on the presentation here, but the new tax rate is 5.9%, which per 100, which will, or, yes, 5.9 cents per 100. And I guess I didn't mess that up, but it's 5.9 cents per 100, and that will net us just slightly more than that, less than 1% more than that. So you can see the way the six largest revenues affect the town, those six items. Taking a look at expenditures, and we'll do this fund by fund. The general fund, general government's $1.9 million, police 1.3, public works is police is 1.5, public works is 1.366, and EMS is at 1.1. Roads are at $742,000, and I will say that all but about $20,000 of that is a grant. Mosquito control, and that's the bargain of the whole thing, is at $133,000. But you can see the expenditures as they break out for the general fund. Taking a look at the harbor, as I said, $617,000 of the harbor's budget this year is capital improvements. Fuel, of course, everybody knows what's happened to fuel here lately. We're estimating $360,000 in expenditures for fuel. Payroll at $63,000, and long-term reserve at $54,000. That is money that we reserve every year from the general fund. From the harbor fund that goes straight into the long-term reserves for the harbor for replacement and operations of $40,000. The water fund. Payroll at almost $400,000. Capital improvements this year at $308,000. Long-term reserves, and this is something that we hope to be able to do. This number may float, but $171,000, and that is what we will commit to long-term reserves in FY23 for the water fund. And you see the transfers of $100,000 there. Every year, the water fund transfers $100,000 to the general fund. So the general fund sees it as a revenue. It's a cost to the water fund, and that's the cost of administering the general fund uses to administer the water department. Looking at trolley, again, $165,000 for the new trolley. That's a capital improvement. Payroll at $48,000. If we can find enough drivers, we'll make that number this year. Operations at $30,000 and fuel at $12,000. So again, fairly low expenditures for the trolley. Looking at the center, and this is the first time, capital improvements that we've listed that we think we can do is $302,000. We'll discuss those in a later slide. Payroll at $51,000. We are hiring a center director for that facility. We will spend at least some time in the town office assisting the town office personnel. Utilities at about $27,000, and we will have to do some marketing for this facility to make it continue to make it viable. Now looking at overall expenditures for the entire budget, as you can see, the six highest overall expenditures here: water at $1,144,000, harbor at $1,135,000, public works at $1,366,000, general government at $1.9, EMS at $1.1, and police at $1.5. So again, you can see the six high expenditures for the entire budget.
Police is 1.2. Is it 1.5?
He's having probably last.
I believe
It was in the last one, but I thought it was 1.241.
You think it is?
1.24.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I think we're sliding off. That's all right.
I apologize.
I know it went up a lot, but I didn't think we had 1.5. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
I will
1.2.
check that, and I'll send you an email, but
Yeah.
I thank you for letting me know. Just thought you might want to see the trends from the last 6 years or so. You can almost, the increase here is almost linear. If you look at 2022, and I might say that all the last 6 years, these numbers are after the budget amendment was done for those years. As you know, we have to amend the budget anytime expenditures exceed 1% of what you've had approved. And that's usually done sometimes mid-year and end of the year, sometimes just at the end of the year. We were going to attack one of those at our next meeting. But I can tell you that once you look at the budget amendment for 2022, that bar will grow right up to the spot where it should be between the other two. So it'll almost look linear. And how have we done with those budgets over the last 6 years? The blue bar represents the number that was the approved budget. The red bar represents actual revenues. So as you can see, pretty good job. Pretty good job was done. There, I think 2018 there was a little difference. 2020, certainly with COVID going on, you can expect that. 2021, we did an outstanding job, and so far in 2022, and that's through the end of March, I believe. So you've got 3 months left on that. That red bar will come up and overtake the blue bar, so we are going to be in good shape there.
I apologize, you had dispatching, please. That's why it's 125.
Yes, I
Denise pointed out to me.
I had to make some decisions.
Through dispatching, please.
This presentation will get a little more complicated as years go by. This is my first attempt. Reserves. In order to properly address emergencies as well as future needs, the town of Shincotica has established several reserve accounts. If you haven't noticed, these pictures are all old pictures.
I'm loving it. Yeah, it's great. I'm loving it. Yeah.
Miss Ellen provided me with a lot of these pictures. Looking at our reserves, and we basically have two bank accounts that have reserves. LGIP, which is Local Government Investment Pool, and our long-term savings, which is at Atlantic Union. Harbor, Water, and General Fund savings are all accounts within those two institutions. If you look at the subcategories under general fund savings, those are internal accounts. The bank knows nothing about those. We keep track of those in the office. So, as you can see in Harbor and LGIP, and I should say the difference between long-term savings and LGIP, once we have sufficient money to work with in long-term savings, the rest of those funds is transferred to LGIP for the higher interest rate, although lately there's been so little difference we haven't bothered with interest rates. Hopefully, as they go up this year, as they're supposed to, we'll get back into making some transfers between those two accounts. But Harbor, we have $208,000 in LGIP and another just about $100 in long-term savings. Water, almost $500,000 in LGIP and another $200 in long-term savings. If you look at our general fund savings, the general account there, that 1.6 contains $1.491, $430,000 of ARPA money. Drainage account is about $250,000. Boat ramp account is $229. We'll be withdrawing that here as we work on the boat ramp at Memorial Park. Land acquisition is $93,000. That might be a candidate for putting some more money away. Playground equipment, of course, we zeroed out doing Brianna's Park. Beach recreation and tourism, we've taken 2 or 3 withdrawals. One of them was for Brianna's Kindness Park. I believe we also hit that a couple of times for donations this past year. Retirement prescriptions, that was money, and I've done some research on all these. That was money put aside to help with the donut hole. Everybody understands the donut hole. For our retirees, mosquito control, that is money that's put in there as needed. Right now, we're adequately funded there. And the drainage, which we really should fold that into the mosquito control account and just get rid of that. The new one here is public safety down at the bottom. You notice that's all in our long-term savings account, and that has been accruing since January 1st of 2021. And you've got just almost $400,000 in that account. Of course, we'll blow through $400,000 by the end of this fiscal year in that account.
So how do we do the banking now, Mike? I know when I was here years ago working, we used to rotate it quarterly. Do we still do that?
You mean between banks?
Yeah.
No.
So do we bid this out to the banks? I mean, how do we determine what? Because they all pay franchise tax.
I'll be quite honest. I can't answer that question. This is the bank that I was left with, and I was told it's been here for a little while. I was told another town manager every so often would just say, okay, we're changing banks because they all pay
Yeah.
their, they all pay
That's why we
their
used to rotate it.
franchise fee, so they rotate it. I can tell you the staff is not excited about that.
No, I wasn't either when I did it, but it's fair.
I can't imagine doing it every quarter. My God, that's
Yeah.
I would think every few years would be the most frequency you want to do that. It does, you know, I'm sure you can realize or you can imagine the problems it would present, but yes, the staff is not excited about that at all.
Mhm.
But we generally, definitely need to take a look at that. And you can see the totals there in case you're wondering. Those two numbers at the bottom total $5,274,257. Removing the ARPA funds from that, and if I did the calculus right here, $3,782,000 roughly is what you have in total reserves. We don't always talk about that a lot, so I thought it would be interesting to do in the budget presentation. Looking at the capital improvement projects, which are just contained within this budget, and it's an impressive list.
look, Team Wayne, number one.
Thank you. Thank you.
Some repairs to the gym, including, and I believe that includes new bathrooms. We also have another project planned for that gym in which we would replace that tile floor with a poured polyurethane floor. The Maddox Boulevard restrooms were intended to go adjacent to the Chamber of Commerce in the circle up there, which of course we own the property. Public Works needs a backhoe. We've got some issues with both of the ones that we currently have, and we certainly want to have one which is good to go, because when you need to dig up a water line, you need to dig up a water line. As we said, patrol car for the CPD, Cropper Street, we talked about that. The AMI bond is what's left on the bond for replacing the water meters. I understand there's, I believe, 8 to 10 years left on that bond. As you know, last year we paid off the other bond completely. So really the only debt we have right now is this bond and the 3 years remaining on the street sweeper, which that is being paid for by the VDOT grant that we get. So really the only thing the town is paying for is this AMI bond right now.
What's total on that?
I do not have that number for you, but I can get it.
Did you say 3 years left on that bond?
I believe they told me it was 7 to 10 years left.
7 to 10 years, okay.
Replacing the waterworks filter media at the Willow Street plant. That hasn't been done in a number of years. It's basically a sand filter, so that's $40,000. Long-term harbor replacement, again, that's going into reserves. That's done yearly. The last wooden finger pier at $215,000 down there at the harbor. Reconstruct the Memorial Park boat ramp at $310,000. Replace an existing trolley at $165,000. Replace the center's HVAC at $213,000. Replace the center's AV system at $53,000. And Harvey and I met with a contractor the other day to tell them what we wanted over there, so they have some good ideas for that. And we want to do some kitchen upgrades there as well that are sorely needed. We need to make the place more attractive. Heating and air is basic. AV is a basic necessity now, good internet, and we also want to make the kitchen attractive to the caterers that we are having coming, because if your caterer doesn't like it, you're more or less likely to go somewhere else. So we feel like we can do that, and a lot of the work that we planned we can do in-house on the winter rainy days and that sort of thing. So Public Works will be doing some work over there too. They can finish the parks.
This is a topic for another time, but I'm going to ask it anyway. The center kitchen upgrade, would this building ever be a building that it could be a actual functioning kitchen that they could actually prepare food in?
No.
Never?
In fact, there's a limitation on the permit right now that says they can't serve food within 2 consecutive events within 48 hours or something like that. I have the thing over in my office. I've talked to the health department about that. They don't remember putting that stipulation on there, but it is. I do have paperwork to that effect. So. We'll revisit that with the health department and see if that's still a thing or not. But we certainly don't want to have that limitation if we don't need it. And after that, we'll take any questions.
No, not a question, but excellent. This actually taught me a whole lot more than when you throw some of these
Figures, that's it.
big figures.
Because there's old pictures in the background.
That was it. That got my attention. Yeah, but no, I appreciate this. This really, for me, and I'm sure a lot of people. I mean, if they could see this on the screen that's out there listening, this really told the whole picture in a nutshell, without all these little, figures in between. Excellent job.
By the way, I know 4 people in that picture.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure Miss Ellen knows them all.
Yeah. Yeah, this was great. Thank you, Mike.
Days gone by on Burton's Flat.
Yeah.
At least I know where it's at.
And Mr. Mayor, if there's any questions at all on the budget before we start the public hearing, I can answer them.
I don't think so. Do you want to do on my agenda, it's got the budget advertisement, or do we do the budget? And
That's
comment?
just for your information. That was the
Okay.
advertisement that was in the paper, just so you can see that it was advertised and when it was advertised. But no, the next item up should be the public hearing.
Okay. All righty. I'm going to open up the floor for a public hearing for our budget. There wasn't anybody for public comment, correct? Or do we have any?
There wasn't a separate sheet.
There wasn't a separate sheet?
No, there was not a separate
Well,
sheet.
then I'll open the floor and anyone wants to come up and speak about it. How about that? No sign-up sheet required. Anybody? Going once? Going twice? Close the public portion of the public comment period for the budget. Anybody in council have anything else? All righty. Sounds like we're at the public meeting, at our work session. We'll go ahead and move this thing along. Next up is the proclamation for Public Works Week. You read this one, Mike, and I'll read the other two.
Okay, sir. National Public Works Week proclamation from May 15th through the 21st of 2022. Whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and to the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the people of Chincoteague Island. And whereas these infrastructure, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of the public works professionals, who are engineers, managers, and employees at all levels of government and the private sector, who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting the nation's transportation, water supply, water treatment, and solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential for all our citizens. And whereas it is the public interest for all citizens, civic leaders, and children on Chincoteague Island to gain knowledge of and to maintain an ongoing interest and understanding of the importance of public works and public works programs in their respective communities. And whereas the year 2022 marks the 62nd annual National Public Works Week, sponsored by the American Public Works Association, Canadian Public Works Association, be it now resolved that I, John A. Leonard, do hereby designate the week of May 15th through the 21st, 2022 as National Public Works Week. I urge all citizens to join with the respective representatives of the American Public Works Association in government agencies and activities, events, and ceremonies designed to pay tribute to our public works professionals, engineers, managers, and employees, and to recognize the substantial contributions they make to protecting our national health, safety, and quality of life. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand done at Virginia, Chincoteague Island, Virginia, the 2nd day of May, 2022.
Alrighty, next up is the resolution for the Emergency Services Appreciation Week for 2022. Whereas emergency medical services are a vital public service, and whereas both career and volunteer emergency medical services teams are ready to provide life-saving care for those who need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and whereas access to quality emergency care dramatically improves the survival and recovery rate of those who experience sudden illness or injury, and whereas emergency medical services has grown to fill the gap by providing important out-of-the-hospital care, including preventative medicine, follow-up care, and access to telemedicine, and whereas the members of the emergency medical services teams, whether career or volunteer, encourage in thousands of hours of specialized training and continued education to enhance their life-saving skills, and whereas it is appropriate to recognize the value and accomplishments of emergency medical service providers for the town of Chincoteague, Department of Emergency Services, Division of Emergency Medical Services, and the Chincoteague Volunteer Fire Company by designating Emergency Medical Services Week. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the town of Chincoteague and the town council of the town of Chincoteague, Virginia, does hereby proclaim the week of May 15th to May 21st, 2022 as Emergency Medical Services Appreciation Week in the town of Chincoteague, with this year's theme being EMS Rising to the Challenge. Next up is the resolution for Hurricane Preparedness Week, which Mr. Rush had got us thinking about. So whereas the town of Chincoteague hurricane season officially begins June 1st and ends November 30th of each year, and whereas the town of Chincoteague, being an island, it is vulnerable to the devastating effects that a hurricane or a tropical storm can cause, with the average land elevation of 3.5 feet above mean tide, it could face loss of life and property if such disaster occurs, and whereas both public and private entities should develop emergency response and recovery plans in accordance with the local jurisdiction and the local emergency management office. Such preventative action could save lives, and whereas the town of Chincoteague Emergency Management Division, the National Weather Service, and the Commonwealth of Virginia strongly suggest that all residents and visitors of the town of Chincoteague be aware of the high winds, flooding, and severe weather that may occur in conjunction with a tropical storm or hurricane. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Town Council of the town of Chincoteague, Virginia, does hereby proclaim the week of May 1st to May 7th, 2022 as Hurricane Preparedness Week for the town of Chincoteague. That's all right, Brian, you're up. We're going to look at Chapter 13 of the town of Chincoteague for the hazard mitigation plan.
I was going to get you to read that for us as well.
That's 600 pages. We'd be here all night.
And next week?
So before you is Chapter 13. I know you had the whole plan. This has been almost a 2-year project with the AMPDC taking the lead on it, and numerous meetings. We here at the town last met with AMPDC, I believe it was about April of last year, March, something like that, to discuss some of the changes in the plan. One big thing that we were trying to put out there, and Mr. Talbot tried to make them very aware, was the flooding at the bottom of the bridge. What better place to put your mitigation strategies but in a mitigation plan? So hopefully someday that can be referenced and maybe make some changes for us. Councilwoman Bowden had something that she wanted to point out. If you want to just mention that, Ms. Councilwoman Bowden.
Yeah, only because something like that sticks out at me. It's on Chapter 13, page 8, and it's the paragraph right above the firehouse. And it is the third sentence. Several ambulances stored in the firehouse are owned by the town of Chincoteague. I just want to have that corrected to say that the ambulances are actually owned by the fire company.
And certainly I will. Apparently that was misunderstood, and as many times as I've read this, tonight was the first time that it was ever at my attention. So again, I apologize for missing that, and certainly that will be corrected for the document. Now, I can send this back for the correction, or we can adopt tonight with the correction being stipulated. So that's what I would recommend to do. But again, just Chapter 13, which involves Chincoteague Island. The rest of it, if you would like some good reading material down the road, feel free and happy to read. But it has certainly been an extreme work in that time period. So.
How often does this get updated, or you have to go through it or change it?
So it's just like our emergency operations plan. It's required at a 4-year update. This plan, however, usually we actually go into past the 4th year and getting everything changed and approved. It has to go up to FEMA for their final approval, and then it's sent back down. So that's why we're where we're at here.
I actually read through a lot of it, not just our chapter, but other towns, and made comparisons to some things that we do that they don't, and vice versa, and everything. I can't imagine the hours put into this. It's just amazing, and great job. Thank you.
It was a team. It was a team effort. It really was.
I know. Great job to everybody. I make a motion that we adopt this with the correction about the ownership of the ambulances.
I'll second. Motion and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. So, mayor and council comments, or do we do? No, that's it. So, we'll start off on my left. Brother Savage.
Just a lot shorter meeting than what I thought it'd be.
Well,
Which I'm not complaining
I'm not
about.
reading the whole had mitigation plans.
But yeah, I just like was mentioned earlier, I like to commend our town manager on that job of the budget and all. I think it was it really, just like Denise said, brought a lot of a true relevance and definition of what was going on and how the funds were spent and such. I thought it was a good job for all those. I'm sure you're going to say, hey, you know, this guy helped, this person helped, and but yeah,
It is.
that's all I
All right. Thank you. Brother Dingway.
Yeah, Brian, I want to thank you for pointing out that Chincoteague EMS isn't just for the challenges on the island, that they're there for anywhere that you feel that people are in need. And well, it could very well be there are people who are just off the island, but that's not the only reason. It is great that you do work together, county, both ways. We see the ambulances during the summertime when we need help, those ambulances are over here. And it is great to work good with people to save their lives.
In that particular incident, it was actually in Princess Anne.
Yeah, and that's you know, it's about people in need. And like, guess what? I guarantee the people in the car will never forget. Never forget it. And thank you, staff, too, because like I said, we all hear that everything going off all the time and see y'all all the time. It's not like it's, when you vote for more EMS people, you know what it's for. You know, and the lives and stuff that y'all put out, and our police department, like I said, you don't know what it is until you're into it. And we know we don't take it for granted, safety that you all do for our people. And we do, it is appreciated, not just us, but the people that are around here. There's so many people, elderly people in our town. Guess what? They can stay in their home. They can stay in their home because they know they're a phone call away from help. They feel comfortable that they don't have to have they want to stay in their home, and they feel that comfort because they know that help is a phone call away. Thank you.
Brother Phillip.
I have nothing good.
Vice Mayor Bott.
Nothing.
Denise.
Yeah, you know, I'm always impressed with our town employees, and then there's times when you're just extra impressed. That I really, really liked that presentation tonight, Mike, and I know it was, you know, you and staff that did that, and that's much appreciated. Robbie, Brian, boys in the back. It's just everybody. It takes everybody to make this town work. We're just the people up here that, have the voice to say yay or nay, and that probably, the people that want to, we're the people that out there, they fuss at us the most, instead of, what's happening. But there's a lot of times too, you wouldn't believe how many times that I know people come up to me and say, man, great job EMS, great job police, the town's been great, and things like that. And that's always good to hear. I love this town, and the people that make it run are top notch. With that being said, please keep Edwin and his family in your prayers. Edwin just lost his dad a couple days ago. And please keep Kelly in your prayers. Her family's going through a tremendous amount right now with some sickness, and they're going to need all the support and prayers we can give them. So appreciate it if everybody would keep them in mind. That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Ms.
Go
Ellen?
Yankees.
Nothing. All righty. I'll just let everybody know. I mean, they've already seen it, but get ready. Summer's coming. We've had a small taste of it, and I got a feeling this weekend coming with Mother's Day and Seafood Festival and everything like that.
Sold out.
Yeah, sold out. If anybody has any tickets, let me know. I'm going to knock them. Anyhow, just get ready. Summer's coming. Appreciate it. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion second. Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All right.